So we found this video of Sensei Aishitemasu asking white people some questions that range from pretty ridiculous to just straight up racist. We have decided to answer as best we can on our own behalf. This may not be the answers that all white people may necessarily give, but they are answers. We do have some questions to ask in return, however, and we'll ask those questions, which are similar in nature to the questions we answer. Also, the first minute or so is included out of fairness, but our setup is a bit long and meandering, so bear with it.
Hey guys, it's me, Seren, back with another video. So, a lot of people have been asking me if I was going to do a response to BuzzFeed's 27 questions that Black people have for Black people. That video was super racist, as we all know, and we also all pretty much know that the video was basically 27 questions that white people have for Black people but are afraid to ask. Reign of April, on Twitter, who started the Oscar So White hashtag, said that the flip side for that is questions Black people want to ask of white people. She goes, the flip side would have been questions Black people want to ask of white people, but we have none. We don't care. So I read that tweet and I was like, I have questions. I have questions. I have questions. So this video is going to be 27 questions that Black people have for white people. I was originally going to get white people to ask, but I don't really know any. And I actually put out a call on Twitter and some people responded, but it was kind of taking a while to get everyone together. So thank you for everyone that volunteered, but I decided I would just ask questions myself because we all know that those questions were 27 questions white people have for Black people, like we all know. So here is 27 questions that Black people want to ask of white people.
All right, ready. Let's go.
Why do white people hate immigrants when you guys immigrated here from Europe? When are you going to go back home?
We're going to assume you mean this for North America, but you should be more specific in future, as there is more to this world than just that. We were born here, much like many others. Sure, our ancestors immigrated here however long ago, as did everybody else's from a technical standpoint. So from our perspective we are home. If you are referring to our ancestors, many of whom are long dead, I'm sure they moved here for the same reasons as non-white immigrants, opportunity. As for hating immigrants, we are not sure what you mean. Most immigrants are welcomed. It's the illegal aliens most people, regardless of skin color, take issue with, since the laws of our society grant them the same rights as legal citizens and immigrants. Take Canada for instance, where healthcare is free. An illegal alien is afforded full healthcare for breaking the law. But, since we are asking a question for a question, it is our turn. Why have you not returned to your motherland, as it were?
Why don't all white men apologize for mass shooters and serial killers? You know, like 80% of them are white males, right?
That is because we are not the ones who commit those crimes or acts upon others. Is it reasonable to expect that people apologize for the mistakes and misdeeds of others based solely on a shared level of melanoma? Of course not. You are implying guilt by an extremely thin association. It is the same reason we do not apologize for the Holocaust. We, individually, had nothing to do with it. Our question for you then is, why do you not apologize for the actions of Boko Haram in Nigeria in abducting hundreds of children?
Why do white people wear cargo shorts with puffy jackets in the winter? Are you guys hot or are you cold? It's very confusing. It makes no sense.
We have never done this, but the consensus is that if a white person was to do this, it would be due to personal comfort. We suppose the only logical scientific answer would be that a vast majority of body heat is contained within the torso in order to keep the internal organs functioning properly. Ergo, they are not cold per se but worried about the weather affecting their physical well-being. Admittedly, this is conjecture. But in fairness, why do Black people insist on wearing puffy jackets on a hot August day in, say, California?
Why don't white people season their food?
We do. Just because it is not up to your standards or meet your flavor profile, it does not mean it is not done. Perhaps you have heard of the spice trade, for example, which was a driving force behind British colonization and entities such as the East India Company. Why do you like fried chicken so much? You do see where these tit-for-tat questions are going here, Sensei Aishitemasu, right? The ridiculousness of them all.
Why do white people believe that structural and institutionalized racism doesn't exist? You guys know these concepts have been proven, right?
We suppose that they have been proven. an example of which would be affirmative action quotas. Requiring the hiring of certain numbers of minorities regardless of their merit would be an example of institutionalized racism. Oh, you mean against minority groups? Well, aside from the numerous laws passed throughout the Western world in order to combat any form of structural or institutionalized racism, you are going to need to provide a citation for this. With that said, we will ask for such a citation with the question, why are you so convinced it does exist?
What is reverse racism?
Nothing. It does not exist. Racism is racism is racism, regardless of skin color. Now, this question is going to have a little bit of supposition to it, but here goes. Why do you think people can't be racist towards white people?
Why do white people think mayo is a slur?
We don't. As far as we know, it's a condensed term for mayonnaise, which is a condiment. But if you are going to inform us that it is in fact a slur, feel free to use it. You have every right to do so. But do not feel that slurs used against you are not equally as viable then. Honestly, this is the first time we have heard of this, but fair enough. Question then becomes, is using mayo as a slur then considered cultural appropriation?
Why are white people always threatening to kill their parents and then actually going through with it?
Again, we have never heard of this. The most famous example of children killing their parents which comes to mind would be the Menendez brothers. That would be Cuban ancestry in part. The most typical stereotype we are accused of is having good relations with our parents, so this would be new to us as well. We are unsure where you are coming from with this, but we would answer that the vast majority would not actually do this. Why would you kill a friend over, let's say, a pair of Air Jordans?
Why don't white people have rhythm? Can you not hear the beat? It's very strange, very confusing.
Rhythm? Seriously? Well, we'd hate to burst your bubble, but we do in fact hear rhythm. This question is so back-assward that we don't know how to answer it. It is so obviously a racist stereotype that we will answer it with an equally archaic and backwards stereotype. Why do you not see as well in the dark?
Why do white people get so angry when others point out white privilege? I mean, you guys do have a 300-year head start on everyone else.
Probably because this privilege that you speak of is touted as a free handout that none of us have ever received. Unless you can identify or direct us how we can cash in on this privilege, it just doesn't seem to exist to us. Perhaps you know more than we do on how we benefit from it, but the majority of us don't see or experience it. We work hard for whatever it is we have, and that's it. No handouts, no freebies, nor anything like a get-out-of-jail-free card. Perhaps you mean white privilege to mean the need to feel guilty for the actions of others, as stated in your second question. We choose to be judged on individual actions and merits and not as a whole. Again, a confusing question, so we choose to respond with the following question. What do you mean by white privilege?
Just saying. Why aren't white people called welfare queens? You guys know you're the main recipients of welfare, right?
We are going to assume you use something along the lines of the Huffington Post article to come to this conclusion. That article shows this breakdown of recipients of food stamps as majority white within the United States. But here we see a breakdown of ethnic proportions within the United States. Now, since you showed no research in your question, we kept ours to a minimum as well and went with a simple 5-minute look into it. With whites making up 63% of the population but only accounting for 40% of those on welfare, yet blacks making up 13% of the population but accounting for 26% of those on welfare, you can easily see the disproportionately high rate of recipients. We're sure you can see the folly of your analyses from here and won't disparage you further. But it does bring up the question, why are you making up twice the amount of recipients of welfare as your demographic would suggest?
Why do white people think affirmative action is racist? The number one beneficiaries of affirmative action are white women.
We do think it is racist, sexist, ableist and any other form of discrimination you can think of. Whatever happened to earning what you get and the concept of a meritocracy?
Why do white people want to say the N-word so bad?
We are going to keep this short since we have a feeling this will come up again, but in general we don't. However, essentially if you tell somebody not to do something, they are going to want to do it. An example is a sign saying don't push the button right over a button. You are going to want to push it. The return question for you is, if we say don't think of the color red, what color do you think of immediately?
Why do white people keep saying they're losing the country? If you're losing, who's winning?
We have literally never heard this in a real-life context. The only example of this we could find is from obviously racist antagonists from movies. Perhaps you speak of the political rhetoric from certain politicians who may use this phrase to incite a nationalistic fever towards values of old such as hard work and a collectivist mindset instead of the more popular modern condition of me me me. Where have you heard this before?
BuzzFeed asked, why are black people always late? Well, I want to know, why are white people always so late? Slang, dance crazes, you guys hear about shit like years later and then you want to act like it's something brand new.
Okay. This is going to take some context to answer here. You make it seem initially like the term late is in reference to linear time as in for example late for work. Then you shift to trends as in white people discovering one after it has been out for a while. So we have no idea what you mean here. Ergo the simple question. What do you mean?
Why are white people always renaming things?
Again. Context. You have to be a little more specific when you ask a question like this in a one-way blind conversation. So our question again boils down to what do you mean?
What are boxer braids?
Here you go. A simple Google search shows that boxer braids are under dispute and were originally referred to as double Dutch braids or double French braids. We are glad we could help. Although it is becoming abundantly clear that a lot of these questions you have could be answered through common sense or a few minutes on the internet. Why is this so important to you?
Why do white people insist that culture belongs to everyone? Culture is literally defined as the beliefs, customs, arts, etc. of a particular society, group, place, or time. It's a particular society that has its own beliefs and ways of life, a particular society, not the general public. To say that a specific culture belongs to everyone literally undermines what culture is.
Because culture is ever-changing, growing and expanding. Culture helps to shape education, and without the sharing of ideas, all cultures and societies are destined to die off. Ergo, without the sharing of cultures you condemn the human race to extinction. But, given that you seem from our point of view to believe in the concept of cultural appropriation, our question is simple. Isn't speaking in the English language a form of cultural appropriation?
Why do white people love doing indie covers of rap songs? What's that about?
I would suggest to you that you ask P. Diddy why he needed to sample Kashmir or Every Breath You Take for his hits. Run DMC with Walk This Way. Cypress Hill with Money. Ice Cube with Another One Bites the Dust. Dr. Dre with When the Levee Breaks. And on, and on, and on. Why can't black artists seem to come up with their own sound? We could direct you back to your 9th question regarding rhythm right about now.
And why will said indie covers then get played on radio stations and in shops that would never play rap music?
You would have to ask the individual shop owners. It probably has something to do with consumer demand though. May we suggest an introduction to economics class instead of what we presume is an education based in gender or racial studies? What was or is your major?
Why don't white people understand that saying all lives matter as a response to Black Lives Matter is redundant? All means every life, including black ones.
Because the phrase Black Lives Matter excludes all other lives. It would be no different than saying we like red peppers. Well, what about the other ones such as green, yellow, orange, and so on? Black Lives Matter places an emphasis on one sort of life, if you will, placing the importance on just one group. All lives matter insinuates that all lives are equal. Are you getting the point yet?
Don't all cancers matter, not just breast cancer?
Yes. But your equivalent is comparing the Black Lives Matter movement to that of breast cancer. Shouldn't all be as important?
Don't all forests matter, not just the rainforest?
No, some forests produce more oxygen for the planet based solely on size. Or are you trying to tell us that one tree can produce as much oxygen as 100 trees?
Shouldn't we be trying to save all sea creatures, not just the whales?
No, tuna tastes good. Plus some are not on the verge of extinction. Isn't this the equivalent of saying all sea lives matter, not just whale lives? This kind of goes against your point in your 21st question about black lives.
Seriously, why do white people want to use the N-word?
We've been over this, so we will ask this question. Why is it okay for others to use it but not white people? If you could not see the speaker, say via telephone conversation, would it not be an insulting term?
Why do white people like to pretend that slavery wasn't so bad? They had food and shelter. They were also, enslaved.
No white person we have ever encountered says this. Nor are all white people even descendants of slave owners. Ergo, why must all white people share the blame for it? Let us not even mention the fact that slavery is still an ongoing issue in Africa, and that blacks were not the only slaves, nor even the predominant ones, in the United States.
Why is getting approved for small business loans considered to be a white people thing?
We didn't know it was. Why can't black people apply for them?
Why do white people move into neighborhoods and assume their way is the best way and then kick everyone else out?
We have never heard of this stereotype. We have heard of the stereotype of white people abandoning neighborhoods when they become ethnic, but again, it is a stereotype, and not necessarily true. But, with that in mind, how does it feel to have the shoe on the other foot?
Why are white people stopped at a rate of 5 times less than black people, despite having a higher chance of being found with contraband like drugs or weapons on them?
Perhaps it has something to do with the rate of crime and the type of crime being committed by each ethnicity. A simple trip to the FBI site and their analysis of crimes shows a disproportionate amount being committed by blacks. Not only that, but it breaks down the types of crimes as well. This is only a part of the study, and we encourage others to look for themselves. Is it an issue of a larger societal problem? Most likely. Is it a one-sided issue? Probably not. Our question then is, what is your reasoning for the statistics and how disproportionate they are?
Why does white America do the crime yet black America do the time?
We have not seen any cases of a white person committing a crime where a black person is convicted for it. Granted, this is not to say it hasn't happened ever. However, to phrase your question like this implies that it is the norm for society. Where is the evidence of this? And if you are speaking in broader, more philosophical terms, our question is simple. What are you talking about?
Why do white people love to say that race doesn't matter when you made up the concept of race?
Because it doesn't. To us, we view individuals on an individual basis. Race is irrelevant when considering things. Are you qualified to fill position X? Do we get along on an interpersonal level? Do we have similar tastes? These are far more important. Why is race so important to you?
And race-based chattel slavery.
If you are basing this on American history, it should be noted that historically the American people were equal opportunity slave owners, looking at it solely from a business perspective. Perhaps you should look at those selling the slaves and their marketing campaign, as it were. Why do you not admonish those who sold your theoretical ancestors into slavery, who were in all likelihood black themselves?
And the last question, why is whitewashing still a thing? Scarlett Johansson.
Presumably you are talking about the upcoming film Ghost in the Shell. It is possible that the producers of this film felt that a big and recognizable name was required in order to draw crowds to recoup the costs of making this film. We cannot say, as we were not involved in the process, nor do we have much interest in it. If it was a previously established character, then we full-heartedly agree with you. A previously defined character should stay true to their roots and not be revamped just to fit social whims. Such as Jimmy Olsen in Supergirl, Barry White in Man of Steel, Jim West in Wild Wild West, and on, and on, and on. Most recently, we have Idris Elba, an amazing actor who has been cast in a role where in the source material he is referred to as a honky and cracker. So our final question is, why is it okay to recast one way but not the other?
This has been 27 questions that black people have for white people. Peace.
And don't think we didn't notice that you asked 33 questions and not 27.
This video was created to abide by YouTube's terms and service. The purpose of this video is to foster discussion and critique of greater issues in a manner of education, not as an attack against those who harbor feelings in contradiction to the contents of this video. The creators of this video have no ill will or malicious intent by creating this video or with the information contained within. This video may contain jokes, satire and criticism that some may find offensive, as well as against some individuals and their ideas and ideals. These are not being shared as a personal attack or abuse of any sort, but as rebuttal and critique of differing views and ideas. The contents of this video are meant as discussion points and are not to be considered in any way to be seen as malicious, humiliating or hurtful. Copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Viewers of this video are actively discouraged from engaging in any sort of abusive or harassing behavior towards any other individuals. Links provided within this video are there to avoid claims of plagiarism and misquoting, and to act as sourcing for information provided.